So this morning the plan is to install this Vantrue Nexus 4 Pro Dashcam into my 2020 Lexus NX 300. I have the Dashcam here, and I also have a hardwire kit that I ordered on Amazon. Just to be perfectly upfront, Vantrue sent me this Dashcam to test and review and install and do this video, but they're not paying for the video, but they did send me the unit. So I just want you to know that I did not purchase this, but I did purchase this little hardware kit on Amazon, and this basically allows me to use the OBD port on the Lexus for power as opposed to a cigarette lighter. So that's the plan. So let's open this up and see what's inside. Now, as many of you may recall, I have installed Vantrue Dashcam on my 2018 Honda Goldwing motorcycle. I was very pleased with it and had done a video on that. And then they reached out to me and asked me if I would make a video of the automobile version. So let's see. I'm not plugging the rear camera into the front camera. Instead, you have to go this route. Okay, I'll hang on to that. This appears to be the camera itself, the forward camera. Okay. There's a little lens protector. I'll take that off a little later. This is most likely the rear-facing camera. Yes, it is. There's the lens, and it also has a little protective cover on it. There's some 3M sticky tape. Here we have some cables, some more hardware, a user guide. Looks like a little cleaning cloth for the lens. I'm assuming this is some adhesive promoter. This appears to be some kind of a protective film. Not sure what that's used for yet. Okay, now let's open up my OBD. Let's see what's in the pack. Okay, this appears to be the windshield mount. Power adapter. What's nice is they do give you another USB-A on the back of it, so you can continue to use your cigarette lighter as also as a USB port, which is kind of nice. So it has a little pass-through power there. I don't know if we're going to use that since I have the OBD power supply. They give you a little pry tool to pry off some of your interior parts on the vehicle. Oh, these are some 3M replacement adhesive pads in case you mess up or need to remount it somewhere else. And then over here we've got some cables. This, I would say, is the cable that goes from the rear camera to the front camera. So just a regular USB to USB-A cable. I'm not exactly sure what that's for. We'll have to read the instructions and see. Okay, so let's read a few of the instructions and see if we can't get this thing installed. Okay, the first thing the manual says to do is to install the SD card. I do have a micro SD. It's just a 128 gigabyte, but it is a SanDisk Extreme. I'm hoping that's fast enough. It should be. It works with an action camera. And this little door where the button is just kind of flips out. And there is a slot. Must go in this way. Yeah. There we go. Okay, SD card is in. Peel this off, which is the screen protector. So next we're going to install this front camera mount. Looks pretty straightforward. Looks like it basically can only go in one way. That's it. So it is now mounted. That was easy. The next step is to install the electrostatic stickers and the front camera. I guess that's what these are. I guess these are the electrostatic stickers. These right here. Interesting. So their suggestion is to mount this next to the rear view mirror. I would prefer to mount it up a little higher, as high as I can get it, just to keep it out of my visual range. But I've got these little, I don't know what this is called, these little dots, and I don't know if attaching it to that is going to cause a problem with any of my windshield sensors. I'm going to try it. I guess I can always remove it if it does cause an issue. Kind of along the lines of this right here, having it attached, you know, pretty high up. Okay, it's virtually impossible to see, but I have installed, you can see maybe a little line here. That is the electrostatic sticker, and I am going to put on some of the adhesive promoter, and then we'll attach the camera to that. Okay, so this is what the camera looks like installed. Got it up about as high as I can get it, and the idea to keep it out of the way so I can still move my mirror and adjust it. It's not going to hit this. The camera, like I said, is on a little rotation, so you can move it around a little bit, but it'll probably take a while for that 3M adhesive to cure. So on this NX300, I had to use my little pry tool to get this A-pillar cover just out enough. Just enough to, I basically raised up this rubber here and just pried under here to pop out that clip. I don't need to remove it. I just need to get it out of the way enough to get my wire. My wire is going up underneath this panel here, and then it's going down, and it should hopefully be hidden by this A-pillar, and then I'm just tucking it up under this rubber, in between the rubber and this roof or liner, I guess, headliner. And now I'm back here, and I will see if I can't pop this panel out enough to get it under there as well, and then go all the way to the back of the car. I was able to get my fingers under on each side and just pull it out just enough to release it, and now I'll wrap my wire up under here. Now back here on the C-pillar, I was able to get my pry tool under here, and then get my fingers under enough to pop some of these snaps that hold it in place. I don't need to remove it. I just wanted to pull it out enough so I can get my wire up under there, and I'll probably have some excess wire once I hook up the camera. So I removed this panel here. It's a center panel on the lift gate, and it just snaps in place. I was able to get a pry tool underneath here and get my fingers underneath and just pull it out, and it just pops out. There you can see the back of the panel, and you can see the little snap clips that hold it in place. So my plan is to run this wire. You can see I bundled up the excess wire here. I'm now going to see if that excess wire will fit back behind this C-pillar to get it out of the way, and that should give me enough wire to route up underneath this trim and have my wire come out right in the center, or close to the center of the rear glass, and that's where I'm going to mount my camera. So there will be very, very little visible, hopefully, from this will actually. Okay, so I mounted the rear camera on the rear glass, and I mounted it far enough away from that spoiler where it should not impede. I don't know how straight it is. I might have to remount it. I decided to store the excess wire up here under the lift gate because there's a lot of room here for excess wire. So I just, instead of using the C panel, I decided to put it up under here. Now I've got the wire coming out here, and it will go up under this trim piece. This wire will go to the camera. My concern now, I want to check, is make sure nothing gets in a bind when we close and open the lift gate. I also don't want a big hunk of wire, you know, visibly sticking down and blocking vision. The other option for a truly factory installation, or looking like factory, would be to pull this panel off and get access to this rubber boot, because there are electronics coming up here into the lift gate, and then I could come out here and I wouldn't have this wire showing right here. Okay, so the problem I had, the way I was trying to do it originally, when I close, once I put this panel back in place and when I closed it, it's crimping this wire. I'm uncomfortable with that. It's pinching it. So the next plan is to see if I can get access into one of these rubber boots. This headliner just snaps in place also. There's little snaps, not sure if you can see that. Yeah, right there. So I just pop those down. I'm gonna see if I can get this rubber grommet out on both ends and see if I can fish my USB cable up through this.
A few moments later.
Okay, so I've completed my installation. Here is the Vantrue cam. Right now I've got it set to where I'm viewing the rear camera because I was testing to make sure it was aligned correctly, which it is. As far as all my wires, you can see they tuck up neatly up under this headliner all the way around. I was able to come remove that A pillar and run all the wires right. Actually, the wire to the rear camera ran back along the roof line, and the wire going down to my power cord runs right down here. Now, the only place you can see it right now, because I haven't tucked it up in there yet, is right there. There's a little piece of that wire sticking out, and then it just tucks in right around this weather stripping all the way down. And I'm using the OBD port for power. So this is the Vantrue OBD port. You can see down there it's showing 12.5 volts. It actually has a built-in little voltmeter, which is kind of cool. So it basically mounts with 3M tape right to this little kick panel. And you can see my wires are pretty neatly hidden. There is a little excess wire and it goes right behind this kick panel, no problem there. I failed to point out that this is the actual plug for the onboard diagnostic port, and the plug is in, and that's why you're seeing the voltmeter reading. So if I were to unplug that, you'd see the bare OBD port. Now, as far as the rest of the installation, going back to the camera, you saw me remove the B pillar. All of my wires, you probably can't even see the rear camera through the window. Let me open this up. And I'll show you what I ended up doing. My original goal was to fish this wire up through this boot so that it would be out of the way. I was unable to get it to fish in there because the USB connector was too big. So what I did is I actually cut this grommet, and then I used some flexible rubber liquid to seal it up good so that it's sealed. I'm going to hit it again with some more just to make sure it's water sealed. So it should be sealed very well right now, and that wire then comes up under this panel, which comes out right here next to the rear view camera. So overall, it's a pretty clean install. I've got all my panels back in place. So now my wire is not in a bind when I close and open this door. I'd say it's about as clean an installation as I was able to do. Now let's go test out this Vantrue dash cam, Nexus N4. Okay, so as you might be able to see here, it's actually got three different areas. It's showing me the cabin up here, which is this little camera right here, and I can rotate that up or down. This is the front view camera, and this is the rear view. Now I can change that. There's a little button underneath here, and I can change the view. Now it's got the cabin camera in the number one position, you might say, the biggest position. If I switch it again, now the rear camera is in the number one position. And now it's only showing the front view, as you can see there. Now it's only showing the cabin. Now, the real reason for this cabin camera is probably if you're like an Uber driver or a Lyft driver and you want to be able to record what's going on with your passengers. I don't think we'll ever use that. I'm using it right now, and I'm recording to it right now because I want to be able to show you the quality of the video and what it looks like. Let me lower it down just a little bit. How's that? That might be a little better. It's a pretty wide angle lens because it's got to be able to capture most of what's going on in the car. And then if I hit it again, now we get just the rear camera, and here we can get all three. We get the front camera, the cabin camera, and the rear camera. I'm going to leave it on there for now, and then we'll edit it down later and see how it comes out.
Before we get started with the rolling shots, I would like to point out that at the bottom of each screen, the N4 Pro does record and display some information such as the current date, the current time, the GPS location, and your current speed. Now, I've cropped out this information on my footage just because there's no need to give away the GPS location and the other information, but be aware that that information is being recorded in each clip and it is displayed on your screen.
Now, it should be recording my voice. There is a microphone. It should be recording audio inside the car. So basically, we'll see what the sound quality is like, because right now I'm not recording anything on my cell phone. Or on my iPhone. I'm only recording what's coming through the dash cam. And what we're looking for during daytime is we want to see how good the shooting 4K out of the front camera. And the other two cameras I think are just 1080p. We want to see if we can read license plates, front or rear. And then we will eventually test this again in the dark to see how it performs in the dark. There's a car right there on the right. We'll see how close you have to get to see or read that license plate, because in the event of an accident, that's really what you're concerned about. You want to be able to know in case the person just takes off and doesn't stop. Maybe they hit you from the rear. This way you'd be able to hopefully capture their license plate and take action however you see fit. Here we're coming up behind a vehicle, and let's just see how close we have to get before we can read the license number. Looks like this is a paper dealer tag. And car is coming up behind me now, so we'll see if it is able to see the license plate number of that car too. Now, I can mute this microphone. There is a button under here that allows me to mute the microphone. I can, of course, use another button to switch my camera angles. If I don't want to view the cabin, for example, I can switch that off. There's also a button that lets you start and stop recording.
What's really strange is at one point during my test, one of the files got corrupted. You can see the screen disappears from the rear camera. It was only one of those 1-minute segments. It did show up on the app, but I could not get it to download to my photos folder, and I couldn't even get it to play on the Vantrue app. I don't know what happened, but for some reason that 1-minute segment from the rear camera got corrupted, and I don't know why. The file is there, I just can't view it. It's the only time I've ever had that happen. I'll keep testing to see if this ever happens again, but that was the only hiccup I've found so far. Here's another example at a stoplight where you can clearly zoom in and see the license plate number of the car in front, as well as the car behind me using both the front and rear cameras. Now it's time to see how this Vantrue Nexus N4 Pro performs in the dark. The Vantrue N4 Pro sensor for the forward-facing camera is using a Sony Starvis 2 sensor, which can produce up to 4K and HDR with a night vision feature. And it can do this whether you're recording 1, 2, or 3 channels. The rear-facing camera and the cabin camera both have sensors capable of producing up to 1080p video. Of course, you can tell a big difference in the quality of the video on the forward-facing camera in 4K compared to the rear-facing camera, which only produces 1080p. But let's see how well we can read a license plate number after dark. I'm going about 20 miles an hour through my neighborhood and I pass this parked vehicle. This is a difficult challenge for any dash cam because that car's not moving. I am moving, so you do get some motion blur. And nighttime video is just never going to be as good as it is in the daylight, so you really would struggle to make out the license plate on this particular shot. Now in this next test, I'm parallel parking. There's a truck in front of me. I think I had my high beams on and my lights were basically just completely blowing out the license plate. You couldn't read it at all. I think if I hadn't had my high beams on, I could have read it. However, the rear-facing camera did an excellent job. I can actually read that license plate of the car behind me with no trouble. A little further down the road, I tried once again to read the license plate of this van that I passed. You can almost make out the license number. I kind of thought the HDR 4K Sony sensor would have done a little bit better job with the night vision, but I can see where if you had a little more light, street lights, you wouldn't have any trouble. This is a very, very dark street, and at some of the times I was testing, I was using my high beams, which does tend to blow out those license plates, especially in Texas, where you have the reflective white license plate tags. In the next section, I'm going to talk about how to get the information off of this Vantrue camera and how to adjust some settings. To access your recorded files or to adjust the settings on the N4 Pro, you'll need to download the Vantrue app for your smartphone. When you first open the Vantrue app, it'll walk you through the steps necessary to connect your smartphone to the camera. Once the app connects to the camera, it will begin recording on the various cameras and it will display a preview screen. Now you can turn your phone horizontally if you want to see a larger image, or you can work with it vertically like I am here. Now you'll also notice down below there is a start stop record button, a mute the microphone button, the ability to take a snapshot or a photo, and at the bottom you have ability to access the files that have been previously recorded. When you select the View Album button on your smartphone, the system will stop recording and it will take you into the library or the album where you can see all of the different recorded files that are on the SD card in the camera. If we zoom in and look at these files, you'll notice they're sorted by date and by time. The most recent recordings will show up at the top of the screen. In this example, I'm recording on all three cameras, so it shows 3 files with the exact same time. Here is my rear-facing camera. Here you can see the cabin camera, and finally, the forward-facing camera. At the very bottom of each of these thumbnails, you'll also notice it shows the file size of each of the clips. The size of the forward-facing clip is much larger because I'm recording in 4K video on the front camera. Currently, my camera is set to do loop recording in 1-minute segments, and that's why you'll notice on each row the clips are exactly 1 minute apart. So the camera will record for 1 minute on each camera, end the recording, and then start a brand new clip at the next point in time. To view one of your recordings, you can simply tap on the icon or the thumbnail and it will bring up a page that lets you view the recording right there within the app. And you can also see some GPS location information from Google Maps down below. This feature can be extremely helpful if you're involved in an accident. You can simply open up the app and show the police officer exactly what happened from any of the 3 cameras. Now at the very bottom of the screen, you'll notice you can pause the playback, you can go reverse or forward, and at the very bottom you can actually trash the clip if you want to, or there is a sync button. Now the sync button allows you to move the file from the SD card into the phone locally so that you can view these clips offline. You wouldn't have to be connected to the camera as we are right now. Right now, you're viewing the video stored on the SD card inside the camera, but you can move that clip over into your smartphone. In the thumbnail view, it does show you at the top that you're viewing files that are located on the camera's SD card. But there's also an option to view files locally. You can move individual or groups of files from the SD card over to your phone, and those will be stored locally. While you can move individual files from the SD card to your local storage, I'm going to show you how to do it for a group or a selection of video clips. Click the small edit icon at the very top right of the screen, and you'll notice the icon will change. You'll also notice two new icons at the bottom of the screen. One is a trash can, and one is a download option. Now you can select the various files you want to download to your phone's local storage. Simply tap on the thumbnails to select which files you wish to download. You can select as many as you wish. However, be aware that the more files you select to download from the SD card, the longer the process is going to take. When you finish selecting the files, click the Share Download button. You may see a couple of messages, and just go ahead and click the check marks to begin the downloading process. In this example, I selected 62 different files, and it took about 15 minutes for those files to download to my phone. One thing that's important to note is that when you move the files from the SD card over to the local storage, those are being stored inside the Vantrue app, so you still have to go inside the app to view those files. They do not automatically transfer to your photo album. However, you can move the files from the local storage of the app into your phone's photo album. And the process is very similar to moving from the SD card over to the local storage. You basically just click the edit button, you select the files you want to move to your photo album, click on the sync button at the bottom of the screen, and it will move those files over to your photo album. Now when we go into Photos on my iPhone, you'll be able to see those 3 files we transferred over. Now let's take a look at how we can use the Vantrue app on your phone to change the camera settings. Click the small gear icon in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. This will stop the recording and enter the settings mode of the app. There are far too many settings on this page to go into in this video. I'll cover a couple of them, but they're mostly self-explanatory. You shouldn't have any trouble figuring out what each setting does. If you click on the resolution setting, this is where you can choose which cameras you want to be active and at what resolution you want each camera to record. In this example, I currently have the camera set to only record from the front and the rear cameras. You can choose which camera combination you want to have in your recordings based on this selection. Let's say I want to record from all 3 cameras. I would click the first choice, and here I can choose what resolutions that I can record at. I'm choosing the top selection, which is the highest quality on all 3 cameras. The front camera will record at 2160p, while the other 2 cameras will record at 1080p. This setting will give the highest resolution video quality, but it will also take up more space on the SD card. Let's use the back arrow to go back to the main settings page. Now let's click on Loop Recording. The N4 Pro defaults to 1-minute loop recording, and I've left it on the default settings. With this setting, the camera will record 60-second clips before it ends each clip and begins a new clip. If the SD card becomes full, then the camera will begin recording over the oldest clips with new clips. As you can see, there are a lot of different settings and the camera is very configurable. You will no doubt want to spend some time looking over all of these different settings and configuring the camera to your liking. So now let me give you my final thoughts on this Vantrue Nexus 4 Pro Dashcam. I've only personally tested a few Dashcams, but of the ones I've experienced, the Nexus 4 Pro from Vantrue is at the very top of the list. It seems to have the best image quality overall front and rear camera, and the bonus little cabin camera where you can see inside the car is also a nice, good quality camera. Now you do get 4K HDR video from that Sony sensor on the front-facing camera, and in daylight it gives you excellent resolution, really good quality video. And then the rear camera and the cabin camera each have 1080p video, and they're good. They're not as good as the 4K video, but they're still very competent. And you have the option of using all three cameras simultaneously, or you can record just the front video, just the rear video, or front and rear. So you have a lot of different options as to how you configure your recording. I only had the one issue where I did get one corrupted file, and it could have been due to my SD card. It was not a new SD card. It's only 128 gigabyte. It is possible there's a bad sector on that card. As far as installation, I found the installation to be much easier than I thought it was going to be. Now, I do recommend the OBD port for power. You don't have to use it. You can use the cigarette lighter adapter, but to me, that's just a little bit more of a hassle to have to install. I also failed to mention that you can lock certain files. You see something, an event, perhaps it's an accident. You can press a button and lock that file. It is basically protected, and you know that the Nexus will not overwrite that file. That's a very, very nice feature. As for advanced features, the 4 Pro has plenty of them. One of the nice ones is voice control. So basically you can just tell the camera what you want it to do. You can tell it to take a photo, lock video, all kinds of different commands that you can use your voice to keep you from having to take your hands off the wheel and fumble around with buttons or a menu system. This camera can also be configured with what they call 24/7 parking guard. And this would be really good for somebody that if you park your car in a public parking lot for an extended period of time, say at an airport, the system will monitor motion, and if it detects motion around your car, it immediately begins recording on all three cameras. The N4 Pro also has a collision detection feature, so that if anything impacts the vehicle while it's parked, it will begin recording. I've already mentioned that I really do like the form factor of the N4 Pro. It's very unobtrusive if you mount it the way I did. You at some point don't even notice it's there. Now the 3.2-inch color screen does give a very nice image. Now if you're interested in the Vantrue Nexus 4 Pro, I'm going to put links in the description of this video. Please put any questions or comments you have in the comment section down below. I'll do my best to answer them, and I will do a long-term review update down the road. Thanks for joining me today. If you like this video, do me a favor and give it a thumbs up. That really does help our YouTube channel, and I'll see you on the next Cruiseman's Garage.